My name is Adaora Nwosu, and if there is one thing life has taught me, it is that sometimes joy hides behind long seasons of pain. I married Ebuka 10 years ago. On our wedding day, my white gown was shining like morning sun, and everyone kept saying, "Adaora, your first child go fine, well, well." I smiled that day, believing it would happen quickly, but months turned to years, and my womb stayed empty. At first, it was just small whispers, people asking harmless questions, "Una never start," or "You never carry." But after 5 years, the whispers turned to pity, and pity turned to insult. Some people even began to call me Nwanyi Adii Mma, a woman that cannot give birth. Every month I waited for my period not to come. Every month it still came, like bad news I could not stop. Ebuka tried to stay strong for both of us. He would hug me and say, "Don't worry, Ada, God's time is the best." But sometimes when I saw him sitting quietly at night, looking at the wall, I knew he was tired too. We tried everything, churches, hospitals, fasting, even native herbs. I drank bitter roots until my tongue forgot what sweet things tasted like. I knelt before pastors, cried before doctors, and begged God in every way I knew. Still, nothing changed. Then one day, my friend Chioma told me about a woman in her church who gave birth through something called IVF, where doctors help you carry your own baby through science. The word sounded strange to me, but Chioma said it worked. When I told Ebuka, he shook his head. "You know that thing costs plenty money," he said, "and it doesn't even work for everybody." But I had reached the end of myself. "Let's just try," I begged. "Even if it fails, at least I will know I didn't give up." We sold our car, used our savings, and even borrowed from my elder sister Ngozi, who warned me gently, "Ada, hope this thing no-go, scatter your mind if it doesn't work." I just smiled and said, "It will work. This one must work." The injections were painful, the waiting was longer, but one morning when the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, Mrs. Nwosu, you are pregnant," my whole body shook. I cried like a child. For the first time in 10 years, I felt complete. I held my belly every night and whispered, "You are my miracle." Little did I know, my miracle would come with a price I never imagined. The day I gave birth was the happiest day of my life. I still remember how the nurse carried the tiny baby and said, "Madam, na girl." I screamed, laughed, and cried all at once. My heart beat fast as I looked at her soft face. She was so small, yet so perfect. Ebuka came into the ward, his eyes already full of tears. He bent down beside me and whispered, "Ada, we finally made it." I smiled weakly and said, "She's our proof that God still answers prayer." We named her Chimamanda, meaning my God will not fail. Everyone that came to visit brought gifts, baby clothes, diapers, even small gold earrings. For the first time in a long while, our house was filled with laughter. I couldn't stop staring at her. I would wake up in the middle of the night just to make sure she was still breathing. Sometimes I sang her lullabies. Sometimes I just watched her tiny fingers move. She had a small birthmark near her shoulder that looked like a teardrop. I used to kiss it and whisper, "You are mine, my miracle." The hospital where I gave birth, Blessed Hope Fertility Centre, even took pictures of us, smiling and holding our baby. They said they wanted to put it on their success wall. I was so proud. 3 months passed like a sweet dream. Chimamanda started smiling, making those small baby sounds that melt your heart. Neighbours would come and carry her, and I would sit proudly, like a queen whose crown had finally arrived. Then one afternoon my phone rang. It was the hospital. "Good afternoon, Ma," a female voice said, too formal, too calm. "Please, we need you and your husband to come in tomorrow morning. It's important." My heart skipped. I asked if there was any problem, but the woman just said, "We'll explain when you get here." That night, I couldn't sleep. Ebuka said maybe it was something about paperwork, but something in my chest told me it wasn't ordinary. The next morning, we went to the hospital. The doctor's face looked serious. He asked us to sit. "Mr. and Mrs. Nwosu," he began slowly, "we discovered a mix-up during the IVF process." My ears rang. "Mix-up? What do you mean?" he continued. "Another couple had treatment the same time as you. We found out there was a mistake in the embryo labeling. The baby you are raising might not be your biological child." The room went silent. I just stared at him, waiting for someone to say it was a joke. Ebuka's mouth opened, but no words came out. Then the doctor added softly, "Another family, the Adeyemis, have come forward. Their DNA result matches your baby. I felt my world collapse. My body started shaking. I looked at the man like he was mad. "What are you saying?" I shouted. "That my child, the one I carried for 9 months, is not mine?" The doctor looked away. "We are very sorry, Ma. Sorry?" How can you be sorry for breaking a mother's heart? I held my chest and tears poured down my face. I kept saying, "No, no, no." But deep inside, I knew nothing was ever going to be the same again. For days after that hospital meeting, I lived like a ghost. I didn't eat. I didn't talk. I just sat on the bed, holding my baby close to my chest, afraid that if I blinked, someone would come and take her away. Abuka tried to comfort me, but he was breaking too. He would pace the room, rubbing his head, saying, "How can something like this happen after everything we went through?" The hospital asked us to come for a DNA test to confirm the truth. I didn't want to go. I told Abuka, "She's my child. I don't need any test to prove that." But he said we had to face it. The day the result came, I felt my heart die slowly. It said Chimamanda was not our biological child. I wept until my eyes became dry. I wanted to wake up and find out it was all a bad dream. But the more I looked at my baby, the more fear grew inside me. Someone else, another woman, had the right to call her daughter. A few days later, the hospital said the other couple wanted to meet us, the Adeyemis. I didn't want to go, but Abuka said maybe we should to understand what was happening. When we entered the hospital meeting room, I saw them, Tenny and Kunle Adeyemi. They looked like those couples you see in TV adverts, rich, calm, and polished. Tenny was pregnant, her stomach round and full. The moment our eyes met, something heavy passed between us. She looked at my baby, at my Chimamanda. With tears in her eyes, her voice shook when she said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Nwosu. I can't even imagine what you're going through. But the doctors said..." She couldn't finish. She just cried. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to scream and push her away. But instead, I just said, "You already have a child growing inside you. Why are you coming for mine?" She looked down, unable to answer. Kunle spoke gently. "Madam, we don't want to hurt you. We just want to know the truth. We've been through pain too." Their lawyer started talking about legal steps, custody, DNA, all those big words that sounded like noise in my ears. I couldn't hear anymore. All I saw was my baby, my miracle, lying in her small shawl, her tiny hand holding my finger. That night, I told Abuka, "If they think they can take her, they will have to kill me first." He sighed and said quietly, "Ada, let's think with our heads, not our anger." But how could I think? Every cry from my baby sounded like a goodbye. Every morning I woke up scared someone would knock and say, "It's time." The world began to see the story. Newspapers, blogs, even TV carried it. IVF baby swap shocks Lagos. Some people called me greedy for holding on. Some said I was a victim. None of them knew the pain in my chest. I was not fighting for headlines, I was fighting for my child. And deep inside, a small voice began to whisper, "What if my real baby is inside that woman's stomach?" The thought burned my heart like fire. The weeks after that meeting felt like living inside a storm. Everywhere I turned, somebody had an opinion about my life. Family meetings were plenty, friends stopped calling, and Abuka and I began to argue almost every day. He wanted peace, I wanted my child. "Let's go through the law," he kept saying. "We can't keep fighting emotionally. Let the court decide." "Court?" I shouted one night. "So strangers will sit down and tell me who my baby belongs to." I didn't even recognize my own voice anymore. My heart was tired, but my body refused to rest. Then one afternoon, a message came from the hospital. Tenny Adeyemi had given birth. It was a boy. I didn't know whether to be happy or broken. The doctor said the DNA confirmed that her baby was biologically ours. For days, I sat in the dark, staring at nothing. So it was true. The child I carried was not mine, and the one I should have been nursing was in another woman's arms. The hospital begged both families to work together for the children's welfare. They suggested we meet again to find a solution. But tell me, what solution can fix a broken mother's heart? When we finally met again, Tenny looked weaker, paler, holding her newborn. I looked at the baby, my baby, and something inside me shifted. He had my mother's nose. He even sneezed the same way I used to sneeze as a child. I wanted to run to him, to hold him, but my legs froze. Tenny saw the pain in my eyes and whispered, "You can hold him if you want." I didn't move. I was afraid that if I touched him, I would never be able to let go. I said quietly, "You have 2 babies now, but me, I have one that might be taken from me. Tenny's tears dropped. I don't know what to do either. Every time I look at your daughter, it hurts me too. But she's already a part of you. How do we start switching them like goods in the market? Her voice broke, and something inside me broke too. For the first time, I saw that she was also a mother caught in the same web. Not my enemy, just another woman who wanted her child. The lawyers and doctors talked about custody and agreements, but I didn't hear much. All I could hear was the sound of my baby's soft breathing and my heart screaming for help. One night, I went into Chimamanda's room, carried her, and sat beside her cot. She smiled in her sleep, and I cried quietly. I whispered, "Even if they say you are not my blood, you came from my body. I carried you. I loved you. That's what makes you mine." And at that moment, I made up my mind. If the world wanted a fight, I was ready. But I didn't know the kind of price that decision would cost me. The court day came faster than I expected. I dressed Chimamanda in a small yellow gown and tied her hair with a ribbon. I wanted her to look bright, even if my heart was breaking. The courtroom was full: reporters, lawyers, family members, strangers. Everybody wanted to see the woman who refused to let go of another couple's child. When the judge came in, my body started shaking. My lawyer stood up and spoke plenty English that my mind could not follow. All I could hear was my heartbeat. Then the Adaomi's lawyer stood too, saying, "Blood is blood, my lord. The right must be given to the rightful parents." Those words cut through me. I held Chimamanda close. She was sleeping, her small hand on my shoulder. Tears ran down my face quietly. The judge said we would have one more week to decide privately. Both families should talk and consider what is best for the children. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that word, children, not child, children. It meant both babies, the one I carried and the one I birthed, belonged to me in some way. A few days later, Tenny called. She said softly, "Can we meet? Just you and me." We met in a small park near the hospital. It was evening, the sky was orange and the air smelled like rain. When I saw her carrying her baby, my chest tightened. I wanted to run, but she stopped and said, "Please, Ada, listen." She sat down and began to cry. "I don't sleep at night. I keep thinking about you. I know what it means to wait for years to pray for one child. I can't imagine the pain you feel." Her voice trembled as she looked at the baby in her arms. "But if we switch them now, who will they really belong to? Who will they call mother?" I broke down too. For the first time, no lawyer, no doctor, just two women sitting under the same sky, bound by one mistake and two innocent souls. I held her hand and said, "I carried your child and you carried mine. Maybe God wanted us to understand that motherhood is not only blood, it's love." We sat in silence for a long time, both crying softly. The next day in court, when they asked if I wanted to continue the case, I stood up and said, "No, I withdraw. The Adeyemis can keep their son. I will raise the one I carried. They both have mothers already, two women who paid the price." The whole room went silent. After that day, life didn't suddenly become sweet. People still talked, and some said I was foolish. But whenever Chimamanda smiled at me, I knew I had made the right choice. Months later, Tenny and I started talking again. We would send each other pictures of the children as they grew. Sometimes we met at that same park and let them play together. One day, as they ran around laughing, I sat beside Tenny. We didn't talk much. We just watched them, our children, free, happy, innocent. I looked up at the sky and whispered, "This is the price of motherhood. Pain, sacrifice, but love that never dies." Tenny heard me and nodded quietly. And for the first time in a long while, my heart finally rested.